G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by Crowcast, of course. A bit happy this weekend with a decent result for the Crows, or just depending on your perspective. But let's get right into it and stop messing around, shall we? Good afternoon or good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Crowcast Weekend Wrap. Good result for the Crows this week. G'day to everyone who's joined us on Discord and on YouTube. Fair competition tonight with the Olympics and also the tail end of the GWS Essendon game, but I'm sure all our rusted-on fans will be in listening live, and I'm sure the rest of you will be listening on demand. Speaking of on demand, we've got two people here who are always on demand. Nikki, how you going, Nick?
I'm going good. I've got the heater, I've got the rug, I've got the Ugg boots on, I've got gloves just in case.
Mac, how you going?
Well, I haven't got all that sort of gear that Nicky's got, but I'm doing well, mate.
Very good, very good. As I said, sorry, go on, Nick.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's what happens when you have a house that has no insulation.
Yeah, no, a bit rude, I got to say. G'day, as I said, to everyone who's joined us on Discord. Don't forget, we're interactive, so if you've got a bit to say about the weekend's results or anything that Mac and Nikki and I spew forth during the course of the evening, feel free to stick your virtual hand up and we'll get you on and get your I'm just reading the chat, get your opinions, and of course g'day also to those on YouTube. Feel free to chat, we can see all of that everywhere. So yeah, Nick and Mac, are we happy that we won?
Oh. Look, you could toss a coin and one side said we lose, the other one said it's heads. I would have been happy with either. You know, it was. I thought somebody put up a thing in Twitter which had two buzzers to press. Yeah. One says, "Press, we win, but we lose," and the second one is, "We lose, but we get more." So you know, it's like that sort of situation. Look, coaching staff, their job is to win, and that's what they did, and I was trying to get enthusiastic, and at stages I did. And at the end of it, I felt, should we have done that?
Yeah.
That.
I was waiting for a last quarter fade out, Nikki. Were you?
I thought it was going to happen because we have to have a quarter lapse, and we hadn't had a quarter lapse till then, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But as I actually said in the game day chat, I would have been okay with a loss until we started getting reamed the way we were by the umpires. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. No, I kind of want to win now, just to stick it up them that they were actively trying very hard for Hawthorn to win. The thing is, though, the coaches, yes, they're going to play to win, and so are the players, you know.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. And that's actually what we want them to do. And I know there's been a bit of discussion about this whole thing of a winning culture. But I think it does actually help towards that. And we saw that at the end of last year as well with the way they were playing, that they were playing a bit more positive, and that led into the start of this year. And so it does, one win doesn't change everything, but it's the way you're playing. And even if you don't quite get a win, you're still starting to create that winning culture in a way, and that's the way I was looking at it. And the other thing is they're all going, well, we're guaranteed to get Horn if we lost. We're not. Look at freaking Collingwood; they're still in the mix as well to bloody get down the bottom.
Yeah, we could still end up.
There's North Melbourne, there's Hawthorn. Those two sides are actually playing slightly decently.
The only thing about
Collingwood, not so much.
The only thing about Collingwood, Nick, you know they're going to go for Dacos with their number one, so Horn's safe. Horn safe from Collingwood.
So he's possibly still in the...
They're kind of out of the equation. Anyway, look, let's push on. Now, we've had a fair bunch of fan mail and requests, Macca, for you to actually get some sort of a theme song, I guess. And I had a bit of time on my hands because we're locked down and all the rest of it.
Here we go. I don't know what's coming next.
So why don't we just get straight into
I'm a little
Macca's
scared.
beloved weekend's results wrap-up. I thought that'd be about your era, Macca.
The worst thing is I couldn't even hear it, mate.
Oh, wasn't it coming through to you? Let me hang on. Let me put it through to you. Are you sure you couldn't hear it?
No, I couldn't, honest.
Yeah, we don't get it.
Dave said he didn't hear anything. PJ says silent. 99, he didn't hear it.
How's that? Is that better? There you go, Mac.
Right.
I was actually trying to find, the old honky tonk stuff from the Western Salon, the saloon bar honky tonk piano thing, but I couldn't. So,
well, I actually don't mind Western music, but no, I'm a real rocker at heart, mate. Real rocker.
All right, well, we'll get Metallica on next week. Anyway, Mac,
No, not Metallica. They're the one band I hate.
You don't like Metallica? We'll get some Iron Maiden in.
I more like Queen.
Oh, that's come on, mate.
No, but genuine old rock of the past. There's some brilliant stuff.
All right, we'll get some Stones on or some Led Zeppelin. Is that more your
No,
style?
we got to go Aussie. Go Easy Beats or Masters of Renaissance.
He just said I love the Rolling Stones and I love Led Zeppelin.
There you go. All right, we'll get some Zepp on. In the meantime, Macca, why don't we actually hit scores, shall we? And on Friday night, we had the Power getting up over the Magpies, Port Adelaide 14-13-97, to Collingwood 10-9-69, a margin there of 28 points. Yeah,
pretty comfortable win for Port Adelaide, and it should have been that too. When you look at the side that they had most of their good players back. Collingwood, they had probably half a dozen young lads in there that are learning the game. Pendlebury got hurt in the first quarter. He started off like a rocket too. And he was making them look very dangerous, but he unfortunately, I think he's cracked a bone in his leg, which is going to keep him out for the rest of the year.
That's him done.
Yeah, but then I've got to say, what madness! Who would have Mason Cox as the medical sub?
It was very strange, wasn't it? Very strange. It was almost premeditated that they weren't sure about the other lad that ended up kicking a few goals. What's his name?
I know who you talk about.
The tall guy down forward. What's his name again? My check. It's almost like he might have been carrying something.
But it's strange. You don't have somebody about 90 foot tall as your sub. You have a running player because so be it. I thought that was very, very strange. But I thought overall not a bad effort by Collingwood to get as close as they did. And Chris for them was absolutely outstanding in the back line. Absolutely outstanding. But Port just too good.
Yep, and starting to get a few back, so they'd like their chances. I still don't think they're up to it. G'day to those who have joined us since we started on Discord, including our Tuesday Night Live host, co-host Peter. G'day to Peter. Nice to see you there. And
there you go, Pete.
I tell you, where's my bloody mouse gone? There it is. Right. Next game. David Teague. Carlton 11-11-77, getting thumped by North by 39 points, 18-8-1-1-6. I'd just hate to be a Carlton supporter, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, look, it's ever since the paper bags with the money went out, and it's been
done.
Yeah, they've been done right from back then, and North Melbourne played very good footy, though, Dean. I thought they are a developing side. I wish we were probably going as well as they are at the moment, because they've got some really nice players in there. I mean, Aaron Hall gave them runs from the back line. Taron Thomas is going to be a real star down the track. He playing both midfield and up forward and kicking a few goals. And what's the boy up forward?
Larky or something.
Larky. He got
good.
7. And no, they look pretty good. No, I think they've got a future. There's no doubt about that. And then you just go and you go down the other way. Simpson Tag Walsh, who is the only genuine player I think they have in their team, who gives his tries his guts out every week. But gee, David Teague, boy, what do you do? I mean, is it Teague? Is it the team? Is it who pays the price?
I don't know.
Considering they've had a number of different coaches and this is still the same issue, I would say it's behind the scenes and it's the team.
Yeah, but Nicky, they keep bringing in players from other clubs and they're paying them a fortune, and they're still the same.
I can't see that it's Teague. The players loved him when he came on. That was a player-driven appointment, David Teague. They all loved him, and if they've gone off him in that short a space of time, then there's something wrong with the playing group. I personally, for mine, there's too much old school influence in that club behind the scenes, in administration and on the board, and they're never going to get anywhere until they have a massive clean out.
Well, they're having the review, as you know, and it'd be interesting to see what it flushes out, because well, when we had our review, there wasn't much left afterwards, was there?
No. One thing I'll say about North Macca is that, yes, they're playing really well. David Noble's got them playing committed footy, and they've got good structures, and they've got some good young kids. But to me, North Melbourne is a study of being good enough to get back to being competitive, but they're still not anywhere near a premiership contending list. And this sort of feeds into the discussion we're going to have a bit later about whether we should be aiming for another number 1 pick or not. Because to me, North Melbourne are going to get good enough to get back to middle of the road, but they're never going to have sufficient cattle to to compete for a flag, in my opinion.
Well, that'll be interesting to see how far they do go, because they'll be adding draft picks in as well. But look, they are playing good footy at the moment. You might be right that they might have, they certainly don't have the cat at the moment to win a flag, but where they develop to, well, time will tell.
Yep, time will tell, and plenty of people disagree with me, and that's always a good thing, because I usually talk a whole bunch of shit. The Lions, 17-18-120, got up by 49 points in the end after the Suns had a bright start. The Suns 10-11-71. Lions really needed that win, and they've kept themselves in touch with the top 4 as a result.
Yeah, well, the sun shone for a half, and then it went to midnight for them after that, and they got outscored in the second half by 76 points, which tells you how well they did or didn't go. Big O, McInerney, the ruckman, he just absolutely dominated. And, of course, the ex-Crow Lions, he played very, very well. And Zorko, McCluggage, etc., they had a feast off of him. The one thing I will say that about Gold Coast, they've got a young lad called Sharp, who's only played about 4 or 5 games, but he's an outstanding young fella.
He's impressed, hasn't he? 3 weeks in a row now.
Oh, he's been outstanding. He's got pace, and he just keeps going, and he's good usage of the ball. And just on the other side of the coin, Rankin is absolute shit. He is playing disgracefully.
Yeah, why would we even... PJ Crows says we should pounce now. Isaac Rankin is either tanking hard to get out of Dodge, or he's just been overrated. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Not sure.
Look, he has ability, because you have a look at his very first AFL game that he played. Everybody was... there were streamers and whistles going off how good he was. And he's gradually just playing worse and worse and worse. And is that his environment? Is it he's doing it deliberately so that he can get out of there? I don't know. But I tell you what, he is pathetic at the moment.
Not great.
The other side to that, though, is that he, as an AFL player, he was a bit of an unknown. So we knew what he had from the SANFL, but now that he's had some exposure to AFL levels, there's a lot more work that goes into him because they understand how he plays, and he's a lot easier to possibly stop, is another side to that.
Don't buy that, Nicky. His first couple of games, he just showed what talent he's got. I just don't see the effort in there at the moment.
I agree, Matt. I think it's work rate. It's not talent. It's work rate. Anyway, moving on. Eagles getting up by 8 points over a gallant St Kilda, 14-10-94. West Coast to St Kilda, 13-8-86.
Well, there's no doubt West Coast played better when their players sleep in their own bed. They played much better football than they've been playing when they're outside of Western Australia. And, there's some of the players that haven't been doing much. Kelly, for example, he really cracked it, and he had a very, very good game.
Yep.
The Darling, Kennedy up forward, Kelly and Gath on the ball, Sheed. The only thing I thought St Kilda, they tried very hard, but they were never ever going to win the game. The one really bright light for them was King up forward, kicking 6 goals. And, wouldn't you love to have one of the King brothers? They're very good.
Yeah, they are very good. We've got one of the King brothers. His name's Riley Tilthorpe, just a couple of years behind.
Exactly. But incidentally, Natanui, he was very, very good in the ruck. Very good.
Now, the Bulldogs stamp themselves, I think, as flag favourites with a 20-point win over Melbourne, 13-7-85 to 9-11-65. They're to the Bullies.
Yeah, well, they've been my favourites for a long time now. And even when they lost last time to Melbourne by, or was it a draw, or whatever it was, when there was a kick after the siren. But I didn't get to see all the game, obviously, because I was watching us throw away the Horn Cup. And but I went backwards and forwards, and I did watch a bit of it. Every time I watched it, I was seeing Oliver picking it up and having or Petrarch, and I thought, gee, Melbourne are going well. But then you look at the scoreboard, and the Dogs, they in turn had Bontempelli and McRae, Smith.
Dogs to me just had a more even contribution than Melbourne, in my opinion. They
did, and look, I would have loved to have watched the whole game because it was obviously high quality, even in the conditions. I'm with you. I think the Dogs are the team to beat. They've got one problem though, Keith did a hamstring, and well, he'll be probably out for at least 3 with that, I would say. So he probably won't play until the finals. But
that's all right. He'll freshen up. He'll be fine.
Yeah, but I think they show that they are the team to beat.
I think the Bulldogs' only issue is a team with a bit of height in their forward line. I think a team that can get on top of them in the air in the forward 50 could hurt them a bit. But, by gee, they've just got goers all across the deck and not too many weak links, really.
Oh, and we also would be amiss if we didn't mention Waitman's mark over Gordon. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
That'd be a big contender for the mark of the year, I thought.
Yeah, not a bad one. All right, Sydney just continuing to win games, 14-14-98 by 40 points over a disappointing Fremantle with a few injury concerns, 8 goals, 10-58. Yeah,
well, it was a bit of a contest for the first quarter, but that's where the contest started, and that's where it finished. Second and third quarters was all Sydney. I think they kicked about 8 goals in a row, and that paid to that. And on top of that, had the situation where first it was Fife with his shoulder, then it was Walters with his hammy. Yeah, and they were very, very weakened. Talking about the one downside for the Swans is Buddy. Buddy, he'll get reported once and maybe twice. The first one, well, he looked like he gave him a good punch in the back of the head, but you can always argue perhaps he's spoiling the ball, but he can't get out of the second one where, when tackled, he actually had the ball both hands, transferred it to his right hand, and with the left elbow went smash into Ryan's face, and that'll be marked as deliberate.
I think so. Intentional, I think so.
Intentional high.
He looked as well to make sure he could get him in the head.
Intentional high and medium, and what do you reckon? Does that give you 2 games?
2 to 3, I think, depending on the impact.
That was that was only the Swans' blemish on the game, I thought. Yeah.
The Cats continuing on and putting paid to Richmond's slim finals chances, in my opinion. 15-5-95, the Cats by 38 points in the end to Richmond, 8 goals, 9-57. What are we prepared to say? I think we did. I think we called it last week, but we just put a full stop on Richmond's not appearing this September.
Look, even if they were managed to sneak in, they're not going to win any flag. They're not going to win a flag. There's 3 teams that are better than them already, and that's even not including Port Adelaide. So they tried, but Geelong had too much class, too much quality. Got to play the game mostly their way. The last quarter, it was a bit of a lapse by Geelong with 5 goals each, but apart from that, it was just all Geelong. And
had the game won by then.
And Dangerfield's right back to form. He's starting to look ominous as well.
Yeah, interesting season, this one. Danger. He's had a suspension and an injury and that, but like I said, Mackey's coming good at the right end.
Yeah. So I think they're one of the 3 chances. Obviously, Melbourne, the Dogs, and not the Swans, Geelong. Those 3, I think they're the ones that one of those 3 will win the flag.
Yeah,
got to say that as fact.
Now, the last game, which is still going, of course, we're 15 minutes into the last quarter, and disregard the score I've put up there, but the score at the moment is the Giants 8-10-58 to Essendon 7-9-51, a margin to the Giants at the moment of 7 points, and we'll keep up with that. The Giants playing for their finals lives. Lose this one and they're probably consigned to the bottom half of the 8, but win and they stay in it. Essendon looking to consolidate. Too close to call this one.
Yeah, I think you've said enough about that one. We'll see where that one finishes up, mate.
Indeed. So there you go. That's scores around the ground. And Macca's 15 minutes of bloody fame. We won't worry about the ladder just yet because it's incomplete. But what we will say, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into it, is that if anyone of the cast of thousands that have now joined us on the live studio audience chat, feel free, if you want to stick your hand up and have something to say, go right ahead. And of course, you can keep chatting in the live show chat room on Discord and also on YouTube as well. Those chats link up. But we got 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 in the live studio audience, Nikki and Macca, and you'd think one of them would have something of some sort of worth to say, wouldn't you?
There's some pretty good heads out there. I'd like to see them, at least 3 of them I can think of that I'd like to see come up and have a chat and take the pressure off of us, and poor old Nikki there straining away in the background.
Now, some people in the live studio audience saying that I'm crackly. Am I still crackly?
Yeah, you are a little bit.
Yeah, you were a little bit.
How am I now?
Fine now.
Better?
Yep. Yeah, no, fine.
All right, beautiful. Okay. All right, so let's have a look at our game, of course, and it was... why was that music going again? Put that up. It was the Crows 16-6-102 by 19 points in the end to the Hawks 13-5-83. A bit of a shootout, a little bit bruise-free, but nonetheless an enjoyable game to watch and a pretty even performance by the Crows. Nick?
It was. It was quite funny that some of the players that we thought might not have done so well actually did quite well. There were a couple I think we're all on the same boat about that we're very disappointed in. But overall, it was a pretty even performance for all 4 quarters.
Matt, how'd you see it?
Yeah, I thought we reverted back to the game plan that had worked better for us in, say, going back a few weeks back. We were a lot more handball happy. We were definitely trying to move the ball on a lot quicker, and it did catch Hawthorn out many times. I'm not sure what and I know you have all the stats. I'm not sure what the forward 50 entries were, but I just thought we seemed to make more out of our forward 50s than they did, and it was because of the speed with which we brought the ball into the forward line. So that's the way I saw it. We have a few players that didn't go well, but we also had some that stood up, and also some that are emerging. So yeah, it was a reasonably good game, and to some degree, look a little bit like two sides in the lower part of the ladder.
I mean, we really were bringing the ball in closer to the 50 before we were doing an entry in, which is something that we've talked about for quite a while that's been our detriment forwards. And you could actually see with how much closer we were getting, how much deadlier those entries were.
Exactly right, Nicky. And one of the reasons why the scoring was reasonably good was for that very reason.
Yeah, transition was far better this time around. Let's have a look at the lineups first of all. I was surprised that they gave Frampton a run so quickly in defence. Of course, Tom Duday coming back in from injury as well. Rowe omitted, and Murray, of course, injured D-Mac as the medical sub. Mac, how'd you see selection?
I was surprised we went as tall as we did. I thought we were very, very tall, and I thought that would probably pay against us, but it didn't. They were actually rotated the talls pretty well, so there weren't that many on the ground at the one time. Brampton, I wasn't surprised. I think he had 31 disposals when he dropped back into the sandfall when he put him in defence. So not totally surprised they gave him a try. Still, I think the jury's still out a little bit. He did some very good things. That another time looked totally lost as if he never played defence, which he hasn't. So very hard to judge him on one game, but he might have a future in defence. He hasn't got one up forward.
Nick, how'd you see it?
It wasn't so much that we were quite tall because it was going to be played at Marvel and the roof was going to be closed, so that's fine for those conditions.
Well, plus we weren't actually that tall. I don't know what Mac is going on about.
Yeah, it was. We had to take out Murray, so we needed another taller defender because they have a very tall forward line. So to me, Frampton was kind of the obvious one at the moment because Mackesy we've actually been playing up forward more than down back. Worrell, not quite sure what's going on with him or just whether he's getting a bit tired or whatever, but he's still a bit more of even though he's tall, he plays more as a mid defender. So I didn't see the problem there. It was interesting in the game day chat was a discussion about whether we actually should have had Tilthorpe or D-Mac as the sub.
I wouldn't have had Riley as a medical sub.
No, I wouldn't.
I didn't think so either, but I thought that was very interesting comments that were being made, and it did make me think because you can use him on the wing, you can use him up forward, but D-Mac, as much as everybody is a bit kind of annoyed, he's that perfect kind of sub because you can put him forward, you can call him back, and you can put him in the midfield.
I think obviously though, Nick, the very fact that he wasn't, because I actually thought the same as you, that wouldn't be too bad, but they obviously just didn't want him to play. They just wanted him to freshen right up before they bring him back in again. It's the only way I can see it.
Yeah. Look, I don't think it's terrible. I think they also wanted to have a look at Elliot Himmelberg for a couple of games, and of course he missed that game with illness. So I think they wanted to have a look at him again before the end of the season. We don't know what Riley's carrying, whether he's just a bit banged up or a bit tired or whatever. I didn't mind that selection. I'm not a fan of a couple of players that are still in there, but that's okay. Lockie Murphy is entrenched in there. Tom Lynch is entrenched. I just feel like we went hell for leather to actually win this game,
Yes.
playing Lynch and putting Frampton in instead of maybe trying Mackesy. I just feel like it was probably our best, or not necessarily best, but our as close to our first choice 22 as you could get, pretty much, without blooding too many players. And I don't know, philosophically, I've got a problem with it.
You're starting to break up a bit again for me.
Sorry, is that better?
No.
Why is that happening tonight? That's a bit weird.
Yeah, still breaking.
How are we now? Better?
Can you say something else?
Better now?
Yeah, that was better. Yeah, look, I'll join you in what you said. I thought we looked like we wanted to win this at all costs, and that's why we brought in the type of players that we did, more experienced type players. And we did win it, and I think it was because they were very concerned about the culture of the club that was starting to look like we were a really shit-house team, and that reflects badly on the club and sponsors, etc. And I think that was more the driving force in this game than anything else. Whereas through the year we've been very good with playing players for development, and not always getting it right every week, but at least in principle trying to do that. And it should be a long-term view. But I'm with you. I didn't think we got it quite right in terms of our selections. Some of the players surprised me with the games they played, but they still not probably go to be the players for next year.
Well, you look at it, one or two in the chat have said it's still an inexperienced team, but you name me one experienced player that was available for selection that wasn't selected this week.
I don't think you could. And the other thing is that I got a surprise that when Dermot said that the Hawthorn had a more inexperienced side than we did out on the ground.
Well, they most definitely did. Most definitely did.
Mm-hmm.
Matty Crouch I wouldn't count because he's not fit enough for AFL yet. He's only just come back from his injury. I don't think there was anyone else that was available for selection that had played over 100 games or whatever, or 50 games even, that got a look in. So we had every experienced player available to us in the side. McKay was a medical sub, so he was part of the squad.
Yep.
I don't understand when you've got an opportunity to set yourself up in terms of a club for the next 5 years with good draft selections, and I know Razor's going to stick his hand up in a moment. We'll have a really good chat about it, and I'm happy to take that view that winning culture is a good culture, and I think winning culture is fine. When you go on the park, the team that goes onto the park should always be trying to win, but I think the selectors and the coaching staff and the club can have a strategic view on selection and have a look at the long-term benefits, and maybe pick a team that is less well equipped. Not so much less well equipped to win the game, but we had Luke Pedler that could have had a run. We had Riley Thilthorpe that could have had a run. There was one or two others that have been playing well. Cook in the twos, Gallant in the twos. We haven't tried Mackesy down back. We chose Frampton instead. We haven't given Worrell another run. We persist with Jake Kelly. Haitley's not quite right at the moment, so he's not counted. Nix reckons he's carrying some groin-related problems, so I wouldn't count Haitley at the moment. So, on paper, you can't fault the team that was selected based on position or structure or whatever. But was it the right team to put on the park against Hawthorn? I'm not quite sure.
Well, there's two in particular. I thought that Cook, this was a perfect game to bring in Cook. I would have brought him in. And I would also, instead of putting Frampton back, I would have given Worrell another game. So there's at least two that I disagree with. And, I wouldn't, and you said that Haitley's not fit, so that rules him out. Gallant, I don't know whether they can play or not. I don't know much about Gallant.
Well, just need to watch the last month of SANFL to know that.
Well, you tell us all about him, Pete, because I haven't watched it.
We've been saying it for the last 6 weeks, Macca.
Yeah, but sorry, which position though, mate?
He plays forward. He should be in there instead of Tommy Lynch.
Well, I agree with you. I would have been playing the young lads because it's all about development. And the more you play them, the better they get. Some of them will show you they're not up to it. Others will show you that they will gradually develop each game you play them. So in the position that we were coming from bottom of the ladder, surely that's what you would do.
Yeah. Nick, what's your thoughts on this?
I agree with you that I don't think Lynch should be in the team. I don't mind Walker so much, just to have that one single senior player in terms of Lynch. I do think he should be playing more in the seconds to help those players play the AFL method. Definitely Lockie, from what he's been putting together in the SNFL, he's so deserving of a chance. And I think he is that perfect replacement for Lynch.
What about Cook? Okay.
Well, I mean, Cook sorry to cut in. Cook could be a perfect replacement for Ned McHenry at the moment.
Yeah, he's a bit slighter, so I just wonder whether there's I do know you can tell that Nick's just absolutely loves McHenry though. So I think I get the feeling that there's a lot of sway that you're getting from him. Murphy, my problem with him is he's too injury prone at the moment. And McHenry's giving more output than what Murphy is. It was good that they finally actually dropped Rowe. It needed to happen a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately. And I probably would have just brought Gallant in, not Cook as yet. Maybe.
Fair enough, but I think we all agree we wouldn't have played Tom Lynch.
No, Lynch and one of McHenry or Murphy for mine in the forward lines should have been out. I also, even though he's a kid, Sam Berry looks to be gasping for breath at the moment. Would have been a good time to maybe play Luke Pedler. Either Berry or Lockie Scholl. Scholl looks a little bit out of puff as well.
Has he got to be injured because he did not want to bend down?
He's looking ginger.
Yeah.
Well,
he did not want to go down and go hard at the ball, which was something that has been his staple since SNFL days against mature bodies. And even when he came into the AFL, it's why he looked like he just didn't look out of place at the AFL because he bodylined the ball. And he was doing it again this time to get to there first, but he didn't want to actively really go down low. So does he have a hamstring issue or something that he doesn't want to do that full bend down?
I reckon he might have some OP.
Yeah.
Because he's he's got no burst speed at all.
Yeah. And
I think you're right saying that. I was going to
if that's the case, if that is the case, if that's what he's got, you rest him.
Of course you do.
Because playing him's going to make that worse.
Yeah. So the only other, they're two at the front end. Not unhappy with the midfield rotations, given that Sloane played a little bit more forward this week, although they still started with the trifecta, most centre bounces. But Jake Kelly down back. Jake had a good game. But what are we gaining from having Jake there at the moment? I just don't understand.
Well, I guess I think that's a position we don't have to worry about because he's probably going to hold his position. And I think in fairness, he's only 25 years of age, so he's not old. And I thought he played pretty well again. No, I'm not against playing Jake. And I know you and I we disagree on this point, but I'm not an anti-Kelly man.
Nick?
I like his endeavour. I like the way that he is that lockdown defender. I do agree that we have issues with his disposal, but we've always had issues with his disposal. And even though he stuffed him up, it was actually nice to see that he got the ball and he was immediately playing on. That, that's something that we've kind of lamented about the fact with him. I do wonder, because we are a bit younger in defence there, as to whether even though he is young, he's got that more mature, experienced head in a way. But yeah, I think possibly why he's still getting games is if anybody had seen the doco on Amazon Prime and the standards that he sets. And I wonder whether that's possibly where a lot of that comes from, as to the reason why he's doing everything that he should do for the team, and he's making everybody else be accountable that they have to work just as hard, which is something that you do need. And Vardy Magic has just pointed something out, interestingly, that Tilthorpe actually pointed out Kelly as one of the two players who've been a great help in his development. So that's kind of that point, I think, that I was trying to make there, that's possibly why he's in, even though we can see that, yes, he does have limitations, because guess what? So do most AFL players.
Yeah, good point, Nicky.
And unfortunately, we hold players who have a little less skill than some of the top ones to a higher standard, unfortunately. I think that needs to be considered when people look at players at that level that they're at. And you're right in a way, Fiend, that sometimes you're like, is he going to be part of the next premiership? And he is only 24, 25. He might be. We don't know.
It's an interesting situation because he is a divisive character in the sense that you either not love him, but you either think he's okay, or because people do seem to fall into two camps. They either don't want him, or they're happy to have him in the team. And I don't know who's right. It's, as I said last week, it's just opinion. It's like arseholes. Everybody's got one.
Yeah, but we're paying you big money for your opinion, Mac. So.
Hey, where's mine then?
The last, Nicky, it's okay. The last check bounced.
Yeah, that's right. Oh dear. Now we've got Animal wanting to have something to say. So let's bring him in before we get into the head-to-head, shall we? There's your invite, Animal. How you going, mate?
Is he going to start drumming?
No.
I do play the drums.
Good choice.
There you go.
Yeah, howdy, Animal.
It's hilarious. Look, I'm just going to jump on the Kelly train. Not because I think Kelly's the greatest player in the world, but I mean, we talk about needing players in that age bracket, and we've lost a lot of players in that age bracket, unfortunately, because of culture and stuff like that. But unfortunately, these things have happened. It's in the past, but we don't you think we need to hold on to players in the Kelly sort of age bracket?
That's a very good point.
Sort of,
very good point.
I don't know. That's all I sort of was.
I think you're 100% right, mate. It's 100% right, and it is a very good point because we don't have very many players that are reflecting a bad period of drafting, and in that particular era, or they've left us. So one of the two. Yeah. So you're spot on, mate. 100%.
But I don't know. I think he's in our best 22 at the moment, and if anything, we need him here. We need him in because he's in the age bracket, and then we play him until maybe Mackesy comes on or whoever. You never know. Maybe Frampton turns into a player one day. But at the moment, we can't afford to let someone in that age bracket go. Surely.
Well, I'm on your side, mate. I think you're right on the money.
But I agree. He's a bit hit and miss sometimes. But I think it showed in the Hawthorn game. He was pretty hand he'd have in the back line.
I don't think he's played too many bad games this year at all. And
no, he hasn't. He's been very consistent this year.
Yeah.
And my one criticism of him, the Animal, only, is that he mentally seems to be slow to move the ball on at times. And and that, as Nicky said, he was a bit better with it this week. And if they could get him to actually get his brain to move it like some of the really top line defenders do, like get it and they've got the vision of the field above.
You can't train that. You can't train that, Mako. That's a personal trait.
But you can improve it.
No, you can't.
I don't think you can turn him into like the old running defender like we used to have with McLeod in his later days.
Yeah, he was good. Jeez.
Obviously,
you're not comparing Kelly to McLeod, are you?
No, I'm not. But you can sort of
the style of.
Yes,
that's the style.
I think part of the problem with Kelly and that his hesitancy is actually previous coaches that we had that were very, very harsh on any mistakes that were made. And when he actually tried to do something and made a mistake, he got absolutely shitted upon. And so he went back to his shell and he was overthinking everything to ensure that he wasn't going to make a mistake because he wasn't allowed to make a mistake if he wanted to play AFL. And to me, that's where that hesitancy has come from. And so when we've actually seen him a couple of times this year, which is more than you do, he does go back into that shell every so often. And that gets highlighted. But I think that's possibly where it's come from with him is the previous coaches. So not good. I mean,
are you saying that it might help if he had the confidence just to know he was sort of relatively cemented in the team as sort of like a leader, and it's going to help the back line sort of to flourish?
Yeah, and we've actually heard that from Nix.
Yeah.
Nix has actually said that he doesn't mind if our players if they make a mistake, as long as they're trying to be like that proactive and taking that risk. He doesn't mind players taking that risk. And I think that's where we've seen some of the changes happening in our team. And of course, we don't have the skill level of our team. We're going to get turnovers. We're going to get scored against quickly. We've already seen that this year. But I actually think it's a step forward for our players.
I think it's good that they're showing a bit of fight, that's for sure.
Animal, thanks. I appreciate your thoughts, mate. And anyone else who would like to come on board as I shuffle Animal back to the crowd, feel free. I think we've got 1990 here. We'll get you on, mate, before we go through some individuals. Please, 1990, bring some sanity back into the discussion, please.
I'm a little bit ambivalent to Jake Kelly. I'm sort of done talking about it, to be honest. I think he's not going to improve drastically on what he is. He's a good, honest trier, and he's good for what we are right now. So I think I'm kind of content for him to continue on as he is, but I won't be overly disappointed if he gets poached by Collingwood end of season, if that's what the rumour is.
And what would you think if he did get poached by Collingwood? What would he bring?
Not a heck of a lot, to be honest. Probably a early third rounder.
And I'd rather keep him than have an early third rounder. For the very reason that Animal said about the age bracket.
Yeah, not too fast really. Either way, I think just going on last night. I think it was probably the one time in my entire life I probably walked away from a Crows game after we've won, thinking, "Oh, not really all that excited about that." But that's okay. I think we played pretty well consistently throughout the game. I think that probably said a lot more about Hawthorn than it did us. I think.
What, you don't reckon Clarko did a Clarko?
I don't think they intentionally tried to lose, but the team that they picked resulted in them having kids on every line.
Yeah.
Which just made it impossible for them to truly
100%. 100%. 1990. That's exactly my point about selection, is that we went in top heavy with games played and experience, and Hawthorn went the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that's the problem. I think why did we do that? We don't gain drastically anything out of this game by. I know everyone says winning culture, and I'd like us to have probably done a lot better than we have this season and won 6 or 7 games and be pushing into next season. But that's not the reality. The reality is we're a bottom club with a bottom talent list that needs urgent influx of talent, particularly midfield, to be able to actually compete with the top clubs in the next 3 or 4 years. Because I think where we are right now, I'm not overly optimistic with our list. I think we've got some good players. I don't think we've drafted very well over the last 3 or 4 years. But I think, our rebuild's going to take a bit longer than I probably thought at the beginning of this year, and we're probably going to have to. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 drafts to truly get the talent that we need right now.
Yeah, I think we're still 4 years away from it, to be honest with you, mate.
Yeah, I think
We won't make the 8 for another. It's certainly 3 years, but most likely 4 years before we're back in the 8.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, just while we've got a little lull here, Razor, I've noticed that you said you're going to come on at the end. We're not going to have time at the end, mate. So if you want to make your point, this is the time to do it. 1990, I'll bid you farewell because Razor's champing at the bit, mate.
No worries.
Right. Our American friend from downtown, wherever the hell it is, Nevada or wherever it was. Get in here, Razor.
Nevada. Close enough to California to actually really be California, isn't he?
I don't know. Not coming on, though. Hurry up, mate. Here he is. How are you, Rose?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Now, Rose, Nicky was just pondering where you actually are at this moment in America.
I'm in Western Nevada, near Reno, by Tahoe.
Yeah, Lake Tahoe. That's near California.
We don't care about that.
Border, isn't
Come on, Rose. Fire up. Tell me what you want to tell me.
Oh, my gosh. I can barely hear you guys. It's a horrible connection.
You just speak, mate.
How's that sound?
Yeah, you're coming through fine.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, no, I was just, it drives me nuts with people playing for the number 1 pick, which is not going to help us. Well, it'll help us, but that's not the problem with the club. So,
what is the problem with the club?
And I think it's a culture, how we coach our young guys, and whether we're blooding them enough. Selection, we reward players for loyalty, and we don't play the best available all the time.
We played the best available this week.
Yeah, this week. Yeah, but we'll give a reward game to someone that probably less than.
So you've been big on winning culture and the fact that inverted commas tanking for a number 1 draft pick, particularly in the knowledge of who's available this year, is counter to forming a winning culture. And on the surface, I don't think anyone would disagree with you that planning not to win every game, Ray, is not part of a winning culture. But you've got to understand how the AFL system works. And every team that has come up and been a contender and been in the premiership window for a series of years has gone through the same process of bottoming out to get talent. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the AFL system works, mate.
I understand that. I'm just saying that with the game as where it is now, I think you could take any of the top 8 or 10 draftees and make them part of a winning culture. So it doesn't have to be the number one.
But you've got in those 10 players, you've got probably 4 or 5 different types of player within that 10 players that are going to go top 10. And the thing is that the bloke who suits our need more than anybody else in that group is the bloke that's going to happen to go first.
And that would be Horn.
That's right.
Right? And there's no guarantee that he's going to live up to the expectations. So it's still...
But there's no guarantee with
Right.
any of them. But the thing is
Right.
that Jason Horn is actually the type of player, in terms of the position that he plays, that we need. We need outside classy midfielders. And he is one. So...
No, I agree with you there, but the club has a history of playing players out of position or not playing them, and they do weird stuff.
But that's a separate conversation, though, Ray. That's
True.
you can't say, oh, let's not bother getting number one because the club's just going to stuff them up anyway.
No, I think the
Agreed.
point that Ray was making was that there's other issues that are still quite glaring in the club, and a couple of the points he's made, you agree with him here, because
Absolutely.
one of our big issues is the development of the younger players. So even if we had Jason Horn, are we going to be guaranteed that we're going to develop him to the best of his ability to actually help us? Because we're still bloody persisting and playing Laird, Sloan and Keys, and we want to put Matt Crouch back in there, the slowest fucking midfield in the AFL. I'm sorry, but I love Lairdy and I love Keysy, but the other two can bugger off as far as I'm concerned. We need to put... Perry should have been in there earlier in the year for longer time periods. Pedler needs to be given a chance in there. With Schoenberg, we're using him in bits and pieces, but we're not using him enough. But every time he is in there, my God, does he make a hell of a difference. And that's where I've got some of the problem of the rhetoric that is around the, oh my God, if we get Hall, we're going to fix everything. It's like, no, we might actually stuff that bloody kid up, because that's what we've done with other midfielders.
Yeah, but none of that. I mean, I don't disagree with any of that, Nick. We're well documented on this podcast for being critical of how the club has treated younger players, and we've been on the front foot when it comes to wanting change at the club. Absolutely, but none of that is an excuse for not identifying the talent that you want in the draft, or that we need in the draft. Put it this way, the last thing we need is another halfback flanker. The last thing we need is another one-pace inside midfielder. We need outside class. Now, there's a couple there. There's Jason Horn, there's Matty Roberts, there's even Arlo Draper, for example. There's a couple in the mix from other states. But from what we've seen of Horn, he is probably the best fit for the type of player that we need. And what we do after we pick our players is another story entirely. But you don't say, oh, well, we're shit at development, so let's just not take top 10 players.
Oh, no. I don't disagree with that at all. But I think a lot of the rhetoric that we've seen around this whole idea of a winning culture is more focused on, we just need to get him, instead of looking at what Ray was actually espousing there, which was about fixing up the rest of the issues that we've got in the club. And I completely and utterly agree with that, because we still have issues. We're still going to be down the bottom ladder. But the other converse part of your point, Fiend, is that yes, they've bottomed out, but probably out of those that have bottomed out, how long did some of them take to rise back up again, as opposed to others that are still kind of sitting around the middle of the road? And was that part of them that even though they did bottom out, they tanked to get those draft picks, but they still created a winning culture, which you can do even without the winning. it's a bit harder, but you can create some positivity around it. And I think that's where those clubs that have had the quicker rise, a la the Hawthorn, etc., that's how it was done. Or else you end up with, it's taken Melbourne how long after they bottomed out as compared to how long it took Hawthorn.
Well, and West Coast made it an art form. They would win a flag and then bottom out the next year and then bounce back up the top the year after. I think the problem is I don't think a lot of people realise how absolutely shit our list is. But I think people still overrate our list. I mean, we're talking about we just had a 5-minute discussion about the value of Jake Kelly, and then the key question was, well, if he went to Collingwood, what do you think we'd get with him? Oh, maybe a third rounder. That's not a good player. It's not a good player getting a third rounder for a guy. So we consistently overrate our squad, and we've the thing that got us into this mess in the first place is that we overrated our players, particularly after the 2017 grand final. And people forget, in 2017 we had a dream fixture, and yes, we had a great September, no question about that at all, until the pointy end. But we had a pretty good fixture to get there, and there were a lot of blokes that were tailing off. And we've been talking about certain players in our team for years and years that have never reached a consistent high level. Like Brodie Smith, for example, was a classic, where he was an All-Australian back when, Mac, 2013?
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
2013, so that's 8 years ago. He was 7 or 8 years ago, he was an All-Australian. Now, he was relatively young when he got that, but where has Brodie Smith been since? He's been inconsistent. Yes, he got his knee injury and all the rest of it. I understand all of that, but he has not maintained the level. You know, we've got David McKay, who is probably in the top 5 of most average 250 game players of all time. You know, we've got Tom Lynch, who is well beyond his best, and yes, he's serviceable, but he's well beyond his best. I mean, we consistently overrate our squad, and I think people underestimate the fact that our squad is in a terrible state, and results mean absolutely nothing right now. We need to replenish our list. And yes, we've got a big gap between our 30-year-olds and our 22-year-olds, but the fact is we're starting so far back that we don't need those 24-year-olds really, because they're not going to be part of the next premiership till either. That's my opinion.
I'm a little scared about what Ogilvy's going to do, because yes, he's pulled some really nice rabbits out of the hat, but his idea of a midfielder I don't like at all.
Well, I don't know what his idea of a midfielder is, but all I can say is we spectators, we look and we can see the one thing we have never had for many, many years is a speedy midfielder who can break from the centre. And yet, you know, when we picked Mackesy, why the hell would we pick Mackesy? Why would we pick a midfielder that's got absolute pace?
It was stupidity. Now, Raze, have you got anything else you want to say to that?
Well, I agree with most of that. It's like it's a culture, though. It's like I think part of our problem is selection, and we have too many old guys on the list that we should be dropping and blooding young players, and because it's going to be a rebuild. We all knew that. So
yeah, I think a lot of people didn't understand exactly to what degree, Race.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm just
they thought it was going to be a quicker bounce back.
Couple of years, yeah.
Right. Well, it's short-sighted. Horn's short-sighted. We need to. So winning culture is a sum of all parts working to the best of their ability. I'm not faulting the players. I'm faulting coaching, selection, how we're drafting. I mean, we have a bag full of mibs that we don't need. So that's why I'm trying to get into the winning culture, playing to win every game. No no player wants to go to a club that's trying to lose, or they want to go to a club that has heart and fight and wants to win every game. And they're picking the best players. They want to play with the best.
But that's when you're recruiting for filling gaps, which is what Geelong have been doing for the last few years very successfully. Geelong built a squad on the back of some good father-sons and some good draft selections. But since then, they have been topping up with role players. And the reason why those role players want to go there, Ray, you're 100% right, is because Geelong have built a winning culture. But what they did before they built that winning culture is they built a squad. And a winning culture is no use to anyone unless you have the cattle. And at the moment, we don't have the cattle. And our senior players aren't the cattle.
Well, I seriously doubt if we're building a squad.
Well, of course we're building a squad.
Well, why is Lynch playing? Lynch shouldn't even be in there. He should be in the twos, make him a player coach.
Well, that's true. We're agreed on all of that sort of stuff. But
Siege drives me nuts.
But this is what I mean about dropping down to get a bloke like Jason Horn. That's what building a squad is all about.
I agree with you partially there, but the focus should not be on Horn.
Why not?
Well, because we have a development problem with the ones we have.
So we don't recruit someone because our development's no good?
Oh, we recruit who's available, best available. But what's the point if we're not developing them properly?
Well, but they're two separate things, though.
They work hand in hand.
Yeah, but they're two separate issues. You don't say, we'll settle for pick 3 because we're not going to develop them well anyway.
Well, I disagree on two separate. It's one issue. You get a player and you have to develop him. It doesn't matter who you get if you don't develop.
Yeah, but nobody's disagreeing with you, Ray. But what I'm saying is that you don't discard an opportunity to get pick 1 just because your development might be suspect.
Yeah, they're two different issues.
I'm not discarding Horn. I'm saying he should not be the total focus.
Yeah, but one is selection, and the other one is development, and they're totally different. And because if you select all duds, you can develop as much as you like, and you get nowhere. What I'm saying is try and get the very, very best, and then you've got a chance of developing a champion.
Exactly. Anyway, Ray, we
get good players, and we don't. Okay.
we got Mick waiting as well. It's always great to hear from you, mate, and your support of the cast is legendary. So we appreciate all of that. I'll shuffle you.
Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great evening. Thank you.
No worries, mate. Stay safe.
Stay safe, mate.
And we'll bring Mick on. Well, this is the Mick. You've got the green light there if you just want to accept that invitation. It's been quite good. It's a very interesting discussion, this one, and I was keen to have it tonight, given the result that we had on the weekend, because it might drag us on a little bit further, but no one really cares about the stats. This is more interesting. Mick, how you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good. I didn't know where you'd have me. I'm out in the middle of
you're cutting in and out a bit there, mate.
Just on your point of.
Oh, you're really cutting in and out there, mate.
Is it really that big a difference between him and Matt Roberts?
Well, I got a question.
I'll have to try another time. I'm a long way from anywhere.
Oh, and he's dropped out completely. But the question was, is there that big of a difference between Jason Horn and Matty Roberts?
Yes.
What's your opinion, Mac?
Well, I would say that I'm not qualified enough to really to say it, but just I'll give my opinion anyhow, because I always do. Horn is a generational player. Roberts could be a very, very good player, and he actually might be as good. But Horn looks better, and he looks like he'll be the one. But Roberts, if you had got Roberts, you'd be probably very happy, and you'd have a good player in your hand. But you'd rather have Horn, but that's not going to be in the equation, I don't think.
I think Horn has more weapons. He's fiercely competitive. He can get his own ball. He can get it on the outside. He also plays very tall. And I think whereas Matt Roberts is very good at what Matt Roberts does, in that he's a very good midfielder, has got a beautiful kick on him, and will have, no doubt, a very good AFL career. If you're talking about wanting a midfielder that can give you some X factor, then Jason Horn at this early stage, and Ray's correct, there's no guarantees, but there's no guarantees on any of the young lads that we pick up, so I mean that's just a given with drafting. But we've got a lad who's playing first 18s for South and holding his own very well. And has lots of strings to his bow, and I'd rather have him than not.
Yeah, drafting is always not that scientific in the sense that I remember going back to the year, for example, when Nick Rewalt and Kikitsky for St Kilda had who was going to be number one, who was going to be number two, because they were regarded as pretty well equal. Well, as it turned out, they were far from equal. Rewalt just went on to be a champion, and Kikitsky, I know he had some, I think it was concussion problems, etc., but was never going to be in the same league. So it's an interesting thing that they can look like they're going to be the Ants Pants, and they might just develop into an ant. So who knows?
Oh well, both the Edwards boys were like that. 2 years out from their draft year, they looked like they could be anything, and they both were touted as first round draft picks, and both of them, Jackson didn't even get drafted in the end, and or Jackson got 1 year with us, and Luke got picked up late by West Coast and is kind of fringe at the moment. He may make it. He looks a bit one pace to me, but so I mean, look, there are other good players. Arlo Draper's an interesting one for me. I really like him, and he is one that is probably coming back from a little bit further back. Hasn't got the runs on the board that someone like a Jason Horn has, but I just feel like he's got something about him as well. So, look. Anyway, it's all conjecture. I understand everyone's point of view, and I certainly appreciate that when the team comes on the park, we want them to win. I just don't think at times that the club has been, not only this year, but in previous years, has been terribly strategic. And I do agree with you, Nicky, that Hamish has got his nuts on the table this year, because there's a bit of South Australian talent on offer. We have some specific needs, and he's got to get this one right.
Yeah, and he needs to pick speed and skill. That's what we need, purely and simply, and not a tweener.
Absolutely.
I love Scholl, I love Hamill, I love Gallant, because they actually have those things, and Cook, but they're all tweeners.
Well, yeah, but not Schoenberg. He's got what you're looking for, Nicky.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. But we need some other outside class around him.
Yes, I understand. But he can play outside as well. He's a very smart footballer.
Yeah. I don't think enough has been made of the potential impact of the Moneyball man that we've had alongside Hamish for the last few years in Banook. We've gone very hard on stats and statistical evidence and looking at projections and all that sort of stuff. And I think sometimes it seems to me like sometimes we've looked too hard at the numbers and not actually at the sniff test, at the eye test. I mean, I think numbers are great to identify potential talent, but you've got to go out and watch someone. Like, there are some players that just develop physically earlier than others, and so they'll rack up big numbers at under 16 and under 17 level just because of their sheer physical size, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to translate to AFL. I think Darcy Fogarty is a bit of that, where he was a bit of a man-child, and it's taken a while for him to even get close to looking like it at AFL level because he got it so easy as a youngster. So I wonder whether we've erred too much into statistical analysis and not actually enough on good football talent identifiers like Alan Stewart used to be, to go out and watch these kids and be able to spot weaknesses or strengths or little glimpses of something that are evidence of a future, and whether we've just been too hard-arsed on the numbers.
Interesting with Banook, they were going to do it last year. We started to do it, but then lovely pandemic happened. But they're actually teaching him to be a recruiter like the others, to actually go out and watch and not just look at the stats. So that was, I think, they had identified that whilst he had that great knowledge, he also needed to round it out.
I think that's ridiculous.
The eye test.
I think that's ridiculous.
I do too.
Has Banook ever played a decent game of footy in his life?
Have I?
Well, yes, you're not a buddy.
Yes, you have, Nick. You have.
Footy, but not a decent game.
Nobody Watson ever says you didn't.
Banook spends as much time looking at NBA stats as he does bloody AFL, and I have no problem with using data. You know that I like trotting out stats and all the rest of it. But by the same token, I think you've got your data guy, but then you've got your talent spotters, and your data guy can maybe pinpoint diamonds in the rough or people that are up, kids that are up and coming and all the rest of it, and say, hey, look, recruiter in Western Australia, go and watch this kid, or hey, look, bloke in Queensland, go and watch this kid. Turning Banook into a talent spotter just seems particularly counterintuitive to me.
No, I think what they were doing was so that he understood what the recruiters were looking at, so he could actually understand that better.
Yeah. Warwick on the chat, I'm not playing the Channel 7 commentator card at all. But I don't know I don't know whether someone who has not played football can necessarily spot. It's a bit like the argument about umpires that have never played football not having a feel for the game.
We're seeing that this year.
Yeah, and that's I guess the analogy with someone like Banook. Yes, you can teach him. He's a good kicker, or he can take the mark at the highest point, or whatever. But that's like saying you can teach umpires the rules, but you can't teach them how to implement the rules. I think you can teach Banook what to spot, but you can't teach him the feel of the game, in my opinion.
No, I think you're quite right, Wayne. I think, the guys that go and watch the games that have real intuition about what they're looking for, not statistics, but looking at how he got those possessions. And, when you've got to translate that further into when they go against bigger bodies and how they're going to develop their own body, etc., all those type of things.
Even when they get their stats, Mac, does a guy
get where and how?
Yeah, does a guy get his stats in junk time when the game's over? Like D-Mac last week got like 5 or 6 touches in junk time when the game was over last week. Does he win his own ball in contested situations? All sorts of things. You've got to actually go and have a look.
Yeah, no,
and particularly also that when you're looking at, and what I do when I go to watch our SNFL team and look at the players, and it's the way that they play to a structure I see from what we want in our AFL team, which may not necessarily mean they have a good game in the SANFL. But you're also looking at, particularly like with Butts or with Duday playing down back, and they're playing some absolutely monsters in the SANFL who are very highly experienced. And it's like, okay, so what are they doing? How are they anticipating? They might get 5 or 6 goals kicked on them, but there was enough there that I could see that there was an AFL player. But somebody else goes along, well, they'll just look at it and go, well, he got 6 goals kicked on him. He's got to be shit. So it's also within the context of the team they've got around them. And like you've said, Fiend, the problem with our SANFL team is the top-up players. When they get tired, our structure falls apart.
Mm.
So it's understanding those type of concepts. And I think you're spot on there, that's what it's got to be. It's the sniff test.
It's sniff test.
Does it smell right?
And a classic example of that was Rendell picking Dangerfield at pick 10.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people, a lot of recruiters steered away from him because he was a bit one-dimensional and didn't have a great kick and all the rest of it. And Rendell was able to spot the fact that he was just an absolute bull. And, we got a beauty. And unfortunately, we weren't able to keep him. But, I maintain that you have to not necessarily have played the game, but to have followed the game for long enough to have understood what's important. And I don't think a guy like Banook, who's only really been involved in the AFL system since he came on board with us, I believe, I don't think a bloke who's been exposed to the sport for 4 or 5 years really has that level of understanding. I think most people on the chat would have a better understanding or a better chance of spotting a future AFL player than a data analyst who has come up analysing NBA and who's only been involved with the sport for 3 or 4 years. That's my opinion.
Well, no, I agree with you, Finn. But anyhow,
all right,
let's move.
Let's move on to greener pastures, shall we?
Was there a game?
There was a game. We were talking about it at one stage. Let's get back into it, shall we? Right. So, let's have a look at some head-to-heads, if you'll remember, and let's just have a quick look at the Giants-Essendon game. The Giants got up 9-12-66 to Essendon 7-11-53. So that keeps them in the hunt. The Giants actually puts them back into the 8 at the expense of Essendon. Essendon 2 points out of the 8, but with better percentage. So there's a lot still to play for there, and probably keeps Richmond in the hunt too.
Interesting answer though, Fang. About 4 weeks ago, we said that the final 8 was absolutely settled, and since then it's been so unsettled it's not funny. Yeah,
those last 2 spots, West Coast coming back to the pack. There's 4 teams on 32 points out of the 8 by 2 points, so it's not over yet by a long shot. Anyway, let's go back to our game. So, all right. So disposals, 353 to 372, pretty even. 234 to 199 kicks, 119 to 173 handballs. So Hawthorn certainly brought a handball game with them. Inside 50s, 48 to 59 in Hawthorn's favour. Our efficiency inside 50, though, Hawthorn had a game like we had a couple of weeks ago where they didn't do much with the ball once they had it inside. 22 shots from 59 inside 50s. We had 28 shots from 48 inside 50s, so that's far more efficient. And Nicky, you're 100% right what you said earlier on in the cast, that it was the way we moved the ball into our forward line that gave us more sniffs at it. Free kicks were even, although, again, it's not the frees you get, it's the ones you bloody miss out on half the time. And
hello, 2 goals to them in the first quarter that should have been frees to us.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Around stoppage, O'Brien got touched up by Big Boy and the other lad, 45 to 29. Clearances, we lost 32 to 40. It was even around. We don't usually lose stoppage clearances like that, but Mitchell and O'Meara and Warple are a pretty good combination. And despite all that experience in the midfield, they got torched around stoppage. So we didn't win around stoppage.
The big fella, he had very long arms. Though Brian never coached for those guys who are really tall and with long arms, and he was giving the three that you just mentioned. He was giving them first crack at it. He was directing it pretty well.
Yeah, I actually think Himmelberg did better in the ruck than O'Brien. O'Brien was very good around the ground, I thought.
Yeah.
But I thought Himmelberg in the actual ruck contest was quite good. Contested posies was reasonably even, 137, 145. Uncontested, similar, 210 to 222. Turnovers weren't a factor, 70 to 72 each way. Marks, we took more marks, obviously, because we kicked the ball more, 117 to 78. Marks inside 50, though, was a key. That's where we've been down for quite some time, but we took 15 marks to 7 inside 50, which was really good. Contested marks 19 to 14, which was also good. So, just a couple of, it just showed the difference in the two styles. Hawthorn were trying to run through our defensive setup. We were trying to chip through with kicks, which is quite a turnaround, isn't it, really, from days gone by, because it's usually the other way around with Hawthorn.
Yep, we're normally the ones just bombing it to the opposition.
Exactly. Defensively, 49 tackles to 66. I did see a lot of broken tackles from us.
The only ones that were kind of broken was when we weren't actually tackling the body but grabbing the arm instead.
Yeah.
To not allow them to dispose, or we knew we weren't quite close enough, but the arm came back so we could grab it and actually retard them back. But our tackling this year has been deplorable.
I'm going to put something to you, Nikki and Macca. Are we seeing the result of a couple of years of just taking the foot off the pedal in terms of building bodies simply because of all the soft tissue injuries that we had? Is this the outcome of Matt Haas and Brett Burton mishandling our fitness program for the previous 2 or 3 years? Are we kind of in management mode trying to, get back on an even keel?
Well, with the exception of Fogarty, most of the players are a bit leaner than they used to be.
Yeah, Fogarty's always been a big boy anyway.
Yep. And he certainly could do with a few kilos off. But I think players are different. I think most teams' players are a little bit leaner than they used to be.
But we've looked lighter than our opposition just about every week, Mac.
Yeah, well, you may well be right. We certainly do have some skinny ones.
Yeah, we do.
But I think you're right, because for a number of the times those broken tackles, we actually made it to the body and we started the tackle correctly, but they were just too easily broken.
Yeah, and it didn't look like technique, Nikki, did it?
No, technique actually didn't look too bad. For some of them, you could understand the way they were running through with the force. That, yes, I think for most other teams, they were likely to result in a broken tackle, unless you had Fogarty standing directly in front of them and they couldn't go around him. But you would still expect a little bit more of effect on the kick or the disposal.
And the problem is our bigger players are slow. Our blokes like Tex and Lynch and Darcy and Himmelberg and those blokes, they're relatively slow, so they're not going to lay too many tackles. We only had 5 tackles inside 50 again. It's very low. Hawthorn had 12. So they're the head-to-heads. Not a huge amount to take out of that, I don't think. 2 different style of plays in trying to attack. I think we were more content to sit back and chip around until we broke Hawthorn's defence open, but we were far more aggressive with our kicks this week than we have been in previous weeks, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that was the whole game plan, was to take the game on, and you could see that right from the word go. With there was a lot of handballs running, and instead of bombing, trying to find a player, and didn't always come off, but I think they were trying to be much more decisive than in the past. No doubt about that. Because there were some nice bits of play as well, which was resulted in goals. But being not a little bit bereft of talent. Of course, sometimes you try and do things you're not capable of.
Very true. Mac, let's have a look at some individual stats, shall we? Let me see here. Oh, that's not happening. Let's do it this way. Alrighty. So Rory Laird again, 36 disposals. I thought he was a little bit more effective than usual this week. 22 kicks, 14 handballs, 6 marks, 5 tackles, 20 contested possessions, 75% disposal efficiency. Kicked a couple of goals too, which is always good from your midfielders. Very handy. Spent his time both forward and back in terms of his possessions, which was good. What else have we got here? 6 intercept possessions, 10 score involvements, which is up on his usual count, which shows he was just being a little bit more forward with his disposals, potentially. 26 pressure acts, 518 metres gained is almost unheard of for Rory Laird. So I think, even though we're used to Rory Laird racking up numbers, in my opinion, he was more effective this week.
Yep, BOG by a mile.
Yeah, I thought he had an absolute ripper of a game. It was quite funny because I still left the Foxtel coverage on, which was very Hawthorn centric, so it was quite hilarious. And Dermot kept going on and on about, they need to put a tagger on him. They need to put a tagger on him. He's getting all these possessions. I'm like, you can put a tagger on him. He's still going to get those possessions. But I think they did actually have a tagger on him. But he was still getting such really good quality possessions. And those meters gained is very unusual for him. There weren't too many high up in the air kicks. There were a couple, but they were under pressure, so that's fine. And the other thing I liked was when he kicked the goal, did he get no mirror's face? So did the rest of the team. So I think there was some nice little argy-bargy going off the ball, and just to see him fire up like that and the quality possessions was very pleasing to see.
Yeah, there's a bit going on with O'Meara, wasn't there, during the course of the match?
Yeah. I have no idea what it's about, but you're quite right. There was a lot of talk going backwards and forwards, and not little friendly chat.
No, it was quite interesting, actually. I was surprised to see that, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's move on.
For Lairdy to react to that.
Yeah, so Seedsman, 25 disposals, 17 kicks, 8 handballs, 8 marks, 1 tackle. Only went at 53% disposal efficiency. Played very much behind the ball and across the wing. A little bit deeper than we're used to seeing, actually, from Seed.
Yeah.
Only the 6 contested positions.
I think he played more defensively.
It looked that way. It looked like we actually swapped Brodie and his roles a bit, Macca.
Just about.
But it was interesting. I felt like we had less of the Seedsman long bombs, and as a result, his disposal efficiency went right down.
Yep. But he was clearing a lot of the balls. He was clearing from the back line. So whereas he's generally been on the wing, running into the forward line, and then kicking long from there. I just thought I was quite happy with his game, but you're quite right. His disposal wasn't 100%.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that because he was actually trying to lower his eyes, Mac, it was actually his disposal efficiency reduced, because the whole measure of disposal efficiency is a bit skewed.
Oh yes, I agree with that.
Just trying to
during the game, I mean, we were pretty scathing on him, but now that you pointed out, because one of the things we did like was Smith either playing up half forward or seemed to be up higher. So I preferred that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix this screen. There we go. That's better. Now we can actually see what we're doing. Yeah, I don't know. He's just going to always get. I'm not going to go on about what I think about his work because we all know. I didn't think it was a terrible game. I didn't think it was a great game. I think it was just a game. 388 metres gained, I think, highlights what you were saying, Macca, about him playing a little bit more defensively. And he was also trying to spot up targets to the detriment. 3 inside 50s, 4 rebound 50s. So, not a terrible game by any stretch, but probably not one of his better. Harry, on the other hand. Harry. 24... who? Schoenberg. There's only one Harry in the team. 24 disposals, 14 kicks, 10 handballs, 5 marks, 6 tackles. Also played behind the ball a little bit in terms of where he was positioning himself. 71% disposal efficiency, 8 contested possessions, turned it over a little bit 6 times. 8 score involvements though, which is good. 29 pressure acts, 318 metres gained. Attended 23 centre bounces, which was excellent, and got 1 clearance, although he was probably integral in a couple of others, in my opinion. 6 tackles as well, 6 rebound 50s. Again, he just continues to show promise, doesn't he?
I think he's an outstanding player in the making. I just think he is one player. They were talking about development before. Well, if you look at from when Harry first came into the club and to where Harry is now, he is developing at a rapid rate, and he's going to be a very, very good player for us. Very good player for long term.
Yeah, just thought it was a really good game. Benny Keys, probably a little bit quieter. I felt like they actually ran with Ben Keys a little bit. 23 disposals, 15 kicks, 8 handballs, 7 tackles, 6 marks. Was also having a few pings at goal, which was good to see, I thought. 8 contested possessions, 13 uncontested possessions, 9 turnovers, which is his probably nemesis, his disposal. Kicked 1 goal, 1, should have kicked 2. Goal assists, none, 4 score involvement. So, not a huge game by Benny's standards. 322 metres gained. He was at 25 centre bounce attendances for 5 clearances. Yeah, he's obviously being hampered a little bit, I reckon, and he might be a bit tired.
I had him in our best 3 or 4, though, still, I thought he played pretty well. He didn't quite start well, but I thought as the game went on, he just got better and better as the game went on. He knows nothing but how to try. That's all he does.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned Rolly O'Brien.
Game.
Go on, Nick. Sorry.
Solid game.
Yeah, solid game. It was a solid game. Riley O'Brien, I mentioned that he got towed up in ruck a bit, but how's this for a disposal a stat sheet? 23 disposals, 15 kicks and 8 handballs, 7 marks, 17 contested possessions, only turned it over 3 times, 6 intercept possessions, took 7 marks, including 4 contested, 19 pressure acts, got 5 clearances himself. I just thought it was one of his. He's been in a good little vein of form probably since the bye, I reckon, around the ground.
Yeah, I thought he got actually done in the ruck, but in the rest of the game, which is the majority of the game, he towed his opponent in that aspect of the game. I thought he played very, very well on a field basis.
Yeah, I had an issue with his marking around the ground because he wasn't clunking the contested marks until like that last 5 minutes of the last quarter. Then finally, just like there was the one where he got 3 in a row, and I think that was the reach of the others that were just kind of putting him off a little bit. But you're right, that work around the ground, particularly some of the stuff he was doing in defence, where we've seen like against Melbourne when they caught him out a little bit, I've seen an improvement there, which was good to see.
Yep. I won't go through too many other stats, but I'll just run some names by you and you can give me your impression. Tom Dede?
Yeah, good game. Yeah,
fairly solid. They tried to isolate him a couple of times, a few little pushy things like this, but, there was a do-day game.
Look, some of his intercept marking is spectacular. The way he can play so tall and he takes the ball so high up in its arc. I reckon he's a better intercept marker than Lever, because Lever will come over the back to spoil, but Duday will float across the front of a pack and mark, and he's just special in that regard.
Which is when I was saying before about Kelly, the way we kind of think, I just kind of, oh yeah, it was a D-Day game. But you're right, those, and some of those when he comes back with the flight. He doesn't care what's coming at him. Yeah. He's going to muck that ball or to really affect it.
Yeah, no, he had a good game.
Chase?
Loved it.
Yes, best game he's played in club colours and starting to look like a genuine footballer. And that's not meant to be nasty, but even when he first went into defence, he looked like he was sort of half doubting himself. He played on the weekend as if he totally believed he belonged there, and that it's his responsibility to get the game going from back there. I think he might turn into a very, very good defender.
Yeah, it was, for me, it wasn't just his defense, because the problem I had when watching him in the SANFL on defense, he was still giving too much space to his player. He's tightened that up so much in the past couple of weeks in the AFL, and he's still then done it with his proactive, getting in front, getting the ball himself, intercepting as well. He's very much, as we've talked about, that Brown type defender who can take those very active small forwards and create a lot of positives for us out of that back half. And you could just see how much he believes in himself and backs himself for what he could do.
And there were a few spoils that he made because he's got such incredible pace that an average player wouldn't have got there. And no, I was very, very pleased because I can finally see a footballer in him and that we're going to get something out of him.
Well, I mean, the thing I think that doesn't get mentioned is that he was on Bruce along with McPherson for most of the game. Hawthorn have a couple of dangerous small forwards. Bruce probably one of the most dangerous on his day. And yet didn't really have an impact. So I thought Chase's game and McPherson's game, actually, I thought it was a bit of a welcome return to form for McPherson, to be honest.
Have to agree.
Sloaney, as I said, he did seem to be playing a little bit more forward, although if you have a look at where his possessions it's the usual spots, but I did see him coming off the front of the square a couple of times. Did you guys notice that?
No. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't
a couple of them.
I mean, he still attended 23 centre bounces.
Yeah, I thought he was in this middle a lot. Poor bugger, he got right across his eyes by Buddy O'Brien.
Yeah, right in that bloody eye again. The thing of it is, he attended 23 centre bounces. He only got 1 centre clearance. And that's the issue that we're having with Rory at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think we've all been in agreement on that for many, many weeks now. So.
Yep. But why don't the clubs see that?
I think the problem they've got is he's the captain and they think he's the leader.
It shouldn't make a scrap of difference.
No, it shouldn't, but it seems to.
Remember Hawthorn in their premiership years had a captain called Richie Vandenberg?
I do remember him.
He wasn't a great player. He was just a good, honest player, but he didn't have to play in the middle to be a premiership captain.
No, I think it's just, I don't know whether it's preserving Sloane's ego or what, but at the moment he isn't justifying playing in the middle.
Yeah, there's no place for it. I thought Brodie Smith looked okay. Hit up a couple of nice passes and that ridiculous goal that he kicked from 60 out.
The snap.
What the hell? That was just ridiculous. 14 disposals at nearly 80 disposal efficiency is pretty good for him. 3 contested, 11 uncontested. Score involvement, 7 score involvements, which was good. 420 metres gained. His 5 inside 50s, 4 rebound 50s. So not a bad game from Brody. It was a bit more prominent, and I think that was because of that little swap that they did with Seedsman, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really liked how we used him.
Of the rest, Lockie Shoal, I reckon, as I said, looks a bit tired to me, or carrying something. He doesn't seem to have any burst pace at all at the moment.
He's got nothing. He's got nothing to offer at the moment. This is not the player that at the end of last year we got us so excited, and the first half of this year got us so excited. 2 Rising Star nominations, and which means he's got talent, he's got ability. Yep. He's always showed courage in the past. He's always showed beautiful kicking. He's not showing any of that at the moment. There's something wrong with him, whether he's injured, whether he's just playing flat. I don't know what, but he's a shadow of the player he was.
Almost ready to wrap him up for the year, Lockie Shoal.
I would definitely wrap him up for the year.
It looks like he's playing sore, and Vardy, I said that earlier too. I reckon he looks like he's got OP. Darcy Fogarty, how did we see his game? He had 13 disposals, 8 and 5, so getting up there, 5 marks, 2 tackles, kicked 2 goals. One is such a beautiful set shot for goal. 69% disposal efficiency. Importantly, 11 contested possessions, so he did get in amongst it a bit more. 3 contested marks. What else here of any note? 4 inside 50. So just, to me, just seemed to be a little bit more involved than usual, Darcy.
I thought it was one of his better games. He actually looked like he was interested in being involved in it all game, Fiend. And when the ball was in the area, he looked like he was wanted to be part of it all the time, because generally you only see him 3 or 4 times for the game. But I think he had 12 disposals, was that right? And
yep.
He was around the area for many others as well. And I liked his game because it looked like he was interested in participating in it.
Yeah, actually got robbed of a couple of marks too. There was one in particular that he took on.
He got
2 of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely robbed. I really liked his game, but what I liked the most about it was the way that him, Walker, and Himmelberg worked together. They were creating that space.
Really good point, Nick. Go on.
Yeah, there was the one bit I'm trying to. I think it was Keys's mark that he had for his set shot, but the vision from behind the goals, you actually saw Himmelberg and Walker and how they were creating space. They were both in the same area, but they were still being able to create space for each other. And then there was that one of the worm burner pass that he got from Lynch, and it was a double lead kind of that Fogarty did. So it was little things like that we saw from those 3 taller forwards, but especially from Fog. I really enjoyed seeing that. He went a bit more quiet towards like the middle, but those couple of touches in that last quarter, those little handballs, or the little taps, getting the body in, that's what helped us win the game. And that was great to see from Darcy.
Our setup with the tools was much better up forward this week. We had Himmelberg at times right up at the wing. We had Tex coming up at the ball, or we had Fogarty. They seemed to play that elastic band setup where, one forward, one back sort of thing, and mixed it up a bit. I thought it looked far more dynamic. Assisted obviously by the fast ball movement and the switching and diagonals that we were using. So. But it just looked far more dynamic this week. And, that's where Elliot Himmelberg frustrates me so much, because you've said this before, Nicky, he runs really good patterns. He's great at ground level. He's a good ruckman. If only he could take a few more marks. I mean, he took 9 marks, Elliot Himmelberg, and looked okay. But at times, he, the marks that he took, how many contested marks did he take? He had 5 contested marks, which is pretty reasonable. But he still didn't look convincing over his head for mine. How did you see it?
Better than I expected, I will say that. Because, like you said, Vinny, he's not that reliable overhead. I think, and it has been mentioned in the chat, playing under the roof helps a lot, because you don't get a lot of deviation from the breeze, etc. And maybe he was a lot more confident going for his marks. But he did actually have a good game, and he did actually mark the ball well. And you're also quite right. My fear about the side being too tall was they'd all stand around in a clump, but they didn't. They spaced themselves out pretty well. So I thought he got a tick for his game. Whether he can repeat it, that's another question.
The problem with Elliot and his marking is something my dad pointed out, which was that his arms used to be straight up by his ears with his hands flat, and they needed to be at 10 o'clock. And he started to do that again more. When we often find him that he's dropping the marks is when he's got his arms dead straight up, and he can't take them there. He can take it when he sees it. Yeah. When he's got the ball in front of his hands, sometimes it's a double grab because he keeps his eye on the ball. And that's what he was doing with a couple of those contested grabs. It wasn't a clean one take, but because he can keep his eye on the ball, he can judge it quite well, and he gets the second grab on it, and he's got it. That's where he's getting better, and he's got to remember to do that to keep his arms there. But you're right. That's his one liability, is that marking ability, where he should be a lot better than what he is, because he gets himself in great positions. He creates space for his other teammates, and he gets out of their bloody way as well.
I think he's showing a real capacity to be quite an attractive set of steak knives to the Matt Crouch trade.
Yes.
Because there's no room for him in our side. Once Riley Thilthorpe comes on, there's no room for Elliot Himmelberg. And he's too good a player to be sitting in the twos. He'll want to go and play somewhere. And I think he'll end up back up north, either playing with his brother or more likely at the Suns with Matt.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think one of the reasons we're playing some of these players is to try, like Lynch and Himmelberg, is that maybe they won't be but no, Himmelberg got contracted, didn't he, Fee?
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, but if I wouldn't be surprised if we did trade him.
Yeah, I think we might package him up. You're right, he is contracted, but that doesn't really matter these days.
He's got to agree to it.
Yeah, but his brother's up there, his family's up there. He'll be right. Tex was a little bit quiet, but I thought had an impact on the game. Geordie Butts was his usual reliable self, although at times struggled with Kaczynski.
He did. I
thought he
bit out when you get bloody pushed in the back.
Yeah, I know. There was one really bad one there.
Yeah,
and the commentators are like, "Oh, why did he try and take a slips catch? Because he got pushed, you dipshit."
That was really made me very angry, because that's exactly what they did say, because he got the greatest shove in his back you've ever seen in your life, and he went flying out. And the umpire didn't say about it. Anyhow, I didn't think at the time Kaczynski gave him more problems than some of the bigger names have.
Yeah, well, I think Murray would have been the matchup on Kaczynski, because Murray's got that great closing speed and tends to be able to get a fist in there. I think Geordie's better on the bigger forwards that rely more on their overhead marking. Yep. So we saw a bit of the value of Murray by his absence, I think. And the last one, just quickly, Sam Berry. How many centre bounces did Sam Berry attend?
I don't think he attended one.
I thought he did one.
Nope, none. So we've played him predominantly as a forward all season, and that could be because of his tank, but when he's getting 4 possessions in a game, I don't see the point.
No, I think Berry is his development has been limited in some ways, in the sense that he's playing very much the same as he did at the beginning of the year, but he hasn't been given very much opportunities at all to do anything more than what he's doing.
No. I'm not quite sure what's going on with that one, to be honest with you.
He does. He has looked tired.
Yeah, but I don't know about that, Nick. Every time I've seen him up the ground, he's good below his feet, below his knees, I should say. He straight lines the ball. He can tackle. I simply don't know why he's not been allowed to be involved more. I don't know whether he's gas rabbit. I don't know. But if he's gassed, don't play him. We got a couple of others in there that we could give a run to. Anyway, we've been going on forever. Any final thoughts, you guys?
Well, basically, we've got four matches to go. I don't believe we can. Actually, I don't believe we can win any of them. Actually.
Also, why did we bother winning this one?
Well, that was my whole point about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because the way North Melbourne are playing at the moment, we could not beat them. We could not beat them. And the other three games, nobody's giving us a chance in them anyhow. So I would say that any win from now is either a bonus or a liability, depending on which way you look at it. Agreed.
Nick?
Yeah, pretty much in that boat. So it's nice to actually we haven't had a win for a while, so it's nice for the players to get a win. But I think we need to, if some of those players are tired or they've got carrying those little niggles, just rest them. We've got to get it right for next year, because we're not in contention for the 8. So why are they still playing them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was a good 4-quarter game. It was a bit of the shootout. Another thing that was kind of said in the chat was, why don't we have a shootout more often? And my reply was, because when we do against any other team, it's not getting our forward line ever. So Hawthorn's probably the only team we can have a shootout against and have a chance of actually getting it up forward. So as long as we still see that little development from those younger guys, particularly from Schoenberg, I think I've really liked to see his development, and I think he'll probably round up the year quite well. Chilthorpe's got to come back in. I really want to see Pedler get a couple of games. And for God's sake, please get Sloaney out of the midfield. Put him out half forward. Put him on the half back. We'll be fine. I'm
willing to bet you two $5 each that we'll see Matt Crouch back in the midfield next week.
Well, I'm not going to take the bet because I think you're right.
Yeah.
I'm only okay with that if we're doing it so that other clubs can see that he's fine over his injuries, so we can trade him.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, look, thanks very much. It's been a slightly different wrap tonight because we had that discussion, which I think was valid given the result and what it meant. So thanks everyone who participated in the live studio chat. It was great to get some different opinions. Don't forget, of course, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. You can see all our supporters there scrolling on the screen. We really, really appreciate everyone who supports us, not only financially, but also just by getting around us on the chat on game day and during our live stream. So fantastic, everyone. Stay safe. Hopefully we come out of lockdown on Tuesday night. And in the meantime, Nikki and Macca, let's call it.
Evening all. Stay safe. Mask up.
Night on.
Do your bit for everybody else.
No.